The year was 2847, and humanity had spread far beyond Earth. They had built colonies on distant worlds, created trade routes between stars, and learned to live among the endless darkness of space. The United Earth Alliance governed all human settlements, keeping peace and protecting their people from the dangers that lurked in the unknown. On the outer edge of human territory sat a small world called New Haven. It was not a rich planet. It had no rare minerals or strategic value. What it had was good soil and clean water, and the 12,000 people who lived there had turned it into a garden. They grew food that fed millions across 3 neighboring star systems. Farmers woke before dawn to tend their crops. Children went to school in small buildings made of local stone. Families ate dinner together and talked about simple things like weather and harvests. Nobody on New Haven thought about war. They had never needed to. General Laura Mitchell had served the Alliance for 30 years. She had started as a young pilot, flying patrol missions near Earth. She had risen through the ranks by being smarter and calmer than anyone around her. Now she commanded the 3rd Fleet from her flagship, a massive vessel called the Resolute. Her silver hair was always tied back neatly, and her blue eyes missed nothing. Other officers called her the Iron Diplomat, because she had ended more conflicts with words than weapons. Laura sat in her office aboard the Resolute, reading reports from the outer colonies. The news was mostly boring, which was exactly how she liked it. A mining dispute here, a trade disagreement there. Nothing that could not be solved with patience and good sense. Her second in command, Captain Maria Santos, knocked on the door and entered without waiting. Maria was younger, with dark hair and a quick temper that Laura had spent years trying to calm. They had served together for a decade and trusted each other completely. Ambassador Shaw sent another message, Maria said. Sitting down across from Laura, says the Valthorians are being difficult about the mining rights near New Haven, Laura sighed. The Valthorians were always difficult. They had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years and looked at younger species the way a human might look at an insect. When humanity had first made contact 60 years ago, the Valthorians had laughed at their small ships and simple technology. They had given humanity a small section of space and told them to stay there like obedient children. What does Kevin want us to do? Laura asked. Nothing. He says he can handle it through diplomatic channels. He just wanted to keep us informed. Ambassador Kevin Shaw had spent 20 years talking to the Valthorians. He believed that patience and respect would eventually earn humanity a place at the galactic table. Laura admired his dedication, even if she sometimes doubted his optimism. Keep monitoring the situation, Laura said, but I trust Kevin. If he says he can handle it, he probably can. Maria nodded and left. Laura returned to her reports, pushing away the small feeling of worry that had settled in her stomach. She had learned long ago to trust her instincts. But she also knew that not every bad feeling meant disaster. 3 days passed without incident. Laura attended meetings, reviewed training exercises, and spoke with colony governors about supply shipments. The mining dispute near New Haven faded from her thoughts, as other matters demanded her attention. Then the transmission. Arrived. Laura was eating lunch with her senior officers when the emergency alert sounded. Red lights flashed throughout the ship, and every screen in the dining hall switched to show the same terrible image. A Valtharian battle fleet had entered the New Haven system. 15 massive warships, each one painted gold and crimson, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Commander Daniel Price appeared on screen from the New Haven orbital platform. He was young, barely 30, with fear clear on his face, despite his attempts to stay professional. This is Commander Price to all Alliance vessels. Valtharian warships have entered our system. They are not responding to hails. I am attempting contact now. Laura watched as Daniel tried again and again to reach the alien fleet. Finally, a face appeared on his screen. Fleet Master Zoroth was a pure-blooded Valtharian noble, with gray skin and 4 eyes that showed nothing but contempt. His voice was cold when he spoke. Your kind has been mining in territory claimed by the Empire. The Emperor has decreed punishment. Daniel's voice shook slightly, but he stood his ground. Sir, those mining rights were under negotiation. Ambassador Shaw was working with your council to reach an agreement. Surely we can discuss this without your ambassador's words mean nothing. The Emperor has spoken. The transmission showed what happened next. Laura forced herself to watch every second, though part of her wanted to look away. The Valtharian ships opened fire on New Haven. Plasma beams tore through the agricultural domes, where families were eating breakfast. Schools full of children vanished in balls of fire. Hospitals, homes, markets, all destroyed in minutes. The orbital platform was next. Daniel Price had just enough time to transmit everything he had witnessed before his station exploded. His last words were a prayer for his family on the surface below. Not knowing they were already dead, 12,000 humans died in 43 minutes. The Valthorians did not take prisoners. They did not warn anyone. They did not even stay to survey the destruction. They simply erased New Haven from existence and jumped away to their next destination. The dining hall aboard the Resolute was completely silent. Maria Santos stood abruptly and left the room, unable to hide her tears. Other officers wept openly or stared at the screen in shock. Some had family on New Haven. Others had friends they would never see again. Laura Mitchell did not cry. She watched the recording 3 times, memorizing every detail. She studied Fleet Master Zaroth's face, his cold eyes, his complete lack of concern for the lives he was taking. She noted the formation of his ships, the weapons they used, the casual efficiency of the massacre. When she finally stood, every officer in the room turned to look at her. They had served under her for years. They had seen her calm in the face of danger, clever in the face of confusion, kind in the face of suffering. They had never seen what they saw now. Laura Mitchell was angry. Not the hot, burning anger that made people foolish. This was something colder, something deeper. It was the anger of a woman who had spent her life believing in peace and had just watched that belief die with 12,000 innocent people. "Get me a channel to the Valtharian High Council," she said. Her voice was steady, but it carried an edge that made her officers shiver. Priority 1. Tell them General Laura Mitchell wishes to speak with them about what happened at New Haven. She walked out of the dining hall and headed for the bridge. Behind her, officers scrambled to follow her orders. None of them knew what she was planning. None of them knew what was coming, but all of them understood that something had changed. The careful, patient diplomat they had known for 30 years was gone. In her place stood something the Valthorians had never seen and could not understand. A human who had nothing left to lose. The news of New Haven spread across human space like fire through dry grass. Within hours, every colony, every station, every ship knew what had happened. People gathered around screens and watched the footage in horror. They saw the Valtharian ships arrive. They saw the plasma beams fall like rain. They saw 12,000 lives end in less than an hour. On Earth, the streets filled with mourners. Candles were lit in every city, and the names of the dead scrolled across public displays. Parents held their children close and wondered if their world would be next. Young people who had never thought about war suddenly felt afraid in ways they had never known. The Alliance Council met in emergency session. 12 representatives from the most powerful human worlds sat around a curved table, their faces showing various shades of grief and anger. Some wanted immediate military action. Others urged caution, warning that humanity could not defeat an empire that had ruled for 10,000 years. "We must respond," said Counselor Nathan Gray, a tall man with a thick beard who represented the industrial colonies. "If we do nothing, they will think us weak. They will strike again. If we respond, they will crush us," replied Counselor Helen Park, a small woman with sharp eyes who had spent her career advocating for peace. "We have seen their ships. We have seen their weapons. Our entire fleet could not defeat the force that destroyed New Haven, so we should just accept it. Let them murder our people whenever they wish. I am saying we must be realistic about our options." The argument went on for hours. No one could agree. Some wanted war, some wanted surrender, and some simply did not know what to do. They were still arguing when General Laura Mitchell arrived. She had traveled from the Resolute at maximum speed, arriving at Earth just 18 hours after the massacre. She walked into the council chamber wearing her dress uniform. Every medal she had earned over 30 years displayed on her chest. Her face was calm, but her eyes told a different story. "General Mitchell," said Council Chairman Victor Reed, an elderly man who had led the Alliance for 2 decades. "We were not expecting you. We assumed you would remain with the fleet." "The fleet knows what to do while I am gone," Laura replied. "I came because you needed to hear something that could not be said over a transmission." "And what is that?" Laura looked at each council member in T. 60 years ago, when we first met the Valthorians, our leaders made a choice. They decided that the best way to survive was to be peaceful, to be calm, to negotiate and compromise and never give the Empire a reason to notice us. And for 60 years, that strategy worked. She paused, letting her words settle into the silence. It does not work anymore. New Haven proved that. We did nothing wrong. We were negotiating in good faith. Ambassador Shaw was following every rule, every protocol, every tradition of diplomacy. And they killed 12,000 of our people anyway, Counselor Park spoke up. "General, I understand your anger. We all share it. But what would you have us do? Start a war we cannot win? I would have you understand that war has already started. The Valthorians declared it when they fired on New Haven. The only question now is whether we fight back or lie down and die. Cannot possibly you do not know what we can do." Laura's voice hardened. "None of you do. Because 60 years ago, while our diplomats smiled and bowed and hoped for peace, other people were preparing for exactly this moment." The council members exchanged confused glances. Laura continued. "There is a facility beneath the surface of Luna. It has existed since first contact with the Valthorians. It was built by leaders who understood that hope is not a strategy. For 6 decades, scientists and engineers have worked there in secret, developing weapons and ships that the galaxy has never seen." Chairman Reed leaned forward. "I have been on this council for 40 years. I never heard of any such facility. You are not supposed to. Only 3 people in this room know about it, and 2 of them helped create it." Laura nodded toward to elderly council members who had remained silent throughout the meeting. "We called it the Prometheus Initiative. It was our insurance policy, our last resort. What exactly did this initiative create? The means to fight back. Real weapons, real ships, real technology that can match anything the Valthorians have." Laura placed her hands on the table. 12,000 people died because we were not ready to defend them. I will not let that happen again. So I am asking this council for authorization to use everything we have." Councillor Gray stood up eagerly. "You have my vote. Whatever you need." Councillor Park shook her head. "This is madness. Even if we have better weapons, the Valthorians have 1,000 worlds. They have millions of ships. They have been fighting wars since before humanity existed. And they have grown lazy," Laura said. "They have conquered species who surrendered. Species who accepted defeat. They have never faced an enemy who refused to stop fighting. They do not know what that looks like. Do you think humans are different? I know we are. Our history is written in blood and fire. We have fought each other for thousands of years. We have survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and near extinction. We are still here because we never learned how to give up." Laura straightened her shoulders. "The Valthorians made a mistake at New Haven. They thought they were punishing us. Instead, they woke something they do not understand." The council fell silent. Chairman Reed looked around the table, reading the faces of his colleagues. Some were afraid. Some were angry. All of them were uncertain. "We need time to discuss this," Reed said finally. "You have 3 hours," Laura replied. "In 3 hours, I will contact the Valtharian High Council with or without your authorization. I would prefer to speak with the full support of humanity behind me, but I will speak regardless. Too many have died for us to stay silent any longer." She turned and walked toward the door. Before leaving, she paused and looked back. "I have spent 30 years trying to keep peace. I have negotiated with pirates, rebels, and alien species who saw humans as nothing more than animals. I have always believed that talking was better than fighting. Part of me still believes that." Her voice dropped, carrying a weight that filled the chamber. "But there comes a time when talking is not enough. When the other side does not want peace, does not respect life, does not care about justice. When that time comes, you have two choices. You can die quietly, or you can make them remember your name forever. She opened the door. I know which choice humanity is going to make. I just hope you figure it out before it is too late. The door closed behind her. The council members sat in stunned silence for a long moment. Then slowly, they began to talk. 3 hours later, they voted unanimously to give General Laura Mitchell whatever she needed. War was coming, and for the first time in 60 years, humanity was ready to fight. The Valtharian High Council met in a palace made of crystal and gold. It sat at the heart of their throne world, a planet they had ruled for 10,000 years. 7 council members gathered in the Great Hall, surrounded by trophies from 100 conquered species. Skulls of defeated generals lined the walls. Flags of fallen empires hung from the ceiling. Everything in the room was designed to remind visitors that resistance was pointless. High Counselor Keth sat at the center of the group. He was ancient, even by Valtharian standards, his gray skin wrinkled and spotted with age. His 4 eyes had watched countless species bow before him. He had ordered the destruction of worlds that refused to submit. He expected nothing different from the humans. Insects wish to speak with us, he announced, his voice carrying amusement. Apparently, they are upset about that farming colony. The other council members laughed. Counselor Yeva, a younger female with sharp features, waved her hand dismissively. Let them complain. What can they possibly do? Their ships are toys. Their weapons are jokes. They should be grateful we only destroyed one world. Perhaps we should destroy another, suggested Counselor Thren, military commander who had personally led the conquest of 3 star systems. Teach them proper respect. In time, Keth said. But first, let us enjoy their desperation. Connect the transmission. The great viewing screen flickered to life, and General Laura Mitchell appeared before them. She stood in her dress uniform aboard the Resolute, her silver hair perfect, her posture straight. Her face showed no fear, no anger, nothing but calm determination. Keth studied her with mild curiosity. He had seen thousands of alien leaders over the centuries. They all looked the same in the end. Some came with threats. Some came with tears. All of them eventually begged. You are the one called Mitchell, he said. The military leader of your small species. I am General Laura Mitchell of the United Earth Alliance, she replied. Her voice was steady and clear. I command the Third Fleet and speak with the full authority of the Alliance Council. How impressive. Keth did not hide his mockery. And what does the Alliance wish to say to the Empire? 3 days ago, your Fleet Master Zaroth entered the New Haven system and destroyed a peaceful farming colony. 12,000 humans were killed. Families, children, people who had never held a weapon in their lives. Yes, I am aware. The colony violated Imperial territory by mining in restricted space. The punishment was appropriate. Laura's expression did not change. Those mining rights were under negotiation with your trade council. Ambassador Shaw had followed every protocol. He had done everything you asked, and you murdered 12,000 people anyway. Counselor Yova leaned forward with interest. Your ambassador's negotiations mean nothing. He was wasting his time and hours. The Emperor grew tired of waiting and ordered justice. That was not justice. That was massacre. It was whatever the Emperor says it was. Yava's 4 eyes narrowed with contempt. You small creatures do not seem to understand your place. You exist because we allow it. Your worlds survive because we have not bothered to take them. Be grateful for our patience. Laura remained silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried something new. Something that made even Counselor Throne straighten in his seat. I did not contact you to argue about what happened. I contacted you to deliver a warning. Keth laughed. A warning from you? What could you possibly threaten us with? For 60 years, humanity has been civil. We have negotiated when we wanted to fight. We have compromised when we wanted to resist. We have swallowed our pride and accepted insults because we believed peace was worth the cost. And her eyes seemed to look directly at each council member in turn. We will not stay civil anymore. The laughter in the council chamber died. Something in her voice, something in her eyes, made the ancient rulers of the galaxy hesitate. Counselor Throne had conquered worlds. He had watched species burn. He knew what real threat looked like, and he saw it now in this human woman. "You threaten the Empire?" Keth asked, his amusement fading. "Your species barely learned to travel between stars. We have ruled galaxies. You have ruled species who surrendered," Lara said. "Species who saw your power and gave up. Species who decided that survival under your heel was better than death standing tall." She shook her head slowly. "Humanity is not like them. We do not surrender. We do not accept defeat. And we have been holding back capabilities we hoped we would never need to use." "Impossible," Yeva said, but her voice was less certain now. "We have monitored your technology. We know exactly what you are capable of. You know what we let you see? You know what we wanted you to believe?" Laura almost smiled. "Did you really think a species would meet the rulers of the galaxy and not prepare for the worst? Did you really think we would trust our survival to your mercy?" Keth stood slowly. For the first time in centuries, he felt something close to uncertainty. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that you made a terrible mistake at New Haven. You thought you were punishing a weak species. Instead, you woke something dangerous." Laura's voice hardened like steel. "You have one standard week. 7 days. In that time, you will surrender Fleet Master Zoreth to face trial for his crimes. You will pay reparations to every family who lost someone at New Haven, and you will formally recognize humanity as an equal sovereign power. And if we refuse, then we will come for you. Not to negotiate, not to ask for peace. We will come to win." The council chamber was completely silent. Counselor Thrawn's hand moved toward the weapon at his side, a reflexive gesture born of 1,000 battles. He had heard threats before, but never delivered with such absolute certainty. "You were insane," Keth finally said. "Your tiny fleet against the power of the Empire? You would be dust within hours," perhaps Lara acknowledged, but perhaps not. "Either way, you will find out in 7 days." She leaned closer to the screen. "I suggest you use that time to remember something your ancestors learned long ago. The most dangerous enemy is not the one with the biggest army. It is the one with nothing left to lose." Transmission ended. The screen went dark. The 7 council members sat in silence, surrounded by their trophies and their pride, and wondered for the first time in millennia if they had made a mistake. "She is bluffing," Yeva said finally. "She must be." "Probably," Keith agreed. But his voice lacked conviction. He had ruled the Empire for 500 years. He had learned to read enemies, to sense danger, to know when someone was speaking empty words and when they meant every syllable. Laura Mitchell had meant every word. "Double our patrols near human space," Keth ordered, "and send a message to Fleet Master Zoroth. Tell him to prepare his ships for battle." "You think they will actually attack?" Thrawn asked. "I think that woman believes she can win. And I want to know why." In the emptiness between stars, humanity prepared for war. And the oldest empire in the galaxy began to wonder if their 10,000 years of conquest were about to end. Deep beneath the surface of Luna, in caverns that had been carved out 60 years ago, humanity's greatest secret waited to be revealed. The facility stretched for miles in every direction, hidden from satellites, sensors, and the prying eyes of the Valtharian Empire. Its official name was Research Station 7. Everyone who worked there called it something else. They called it... Director Samuel Brooks had run the facility for 20 years. He was a quiet man, with graying temples and hands that never stopped moving. Before coming to Luna, he had been one of the finest engineers in human space. Now he spent his days preparing for a war he had always hoped would never come. When General Laura Mitchell arrived with her senior officers, Samuel was waiting at the landing bay. He shook her hand firmly and led her into the facility without wasting time on small talk. Both of them knew there was too much to do and too little time to do it. "We have been ready for this moment since the day the Valthorians first laughed at our ships," Samuel said as they walked through long corridors carved from lunar rock. "Our founders understood something the politicians never did. Peace requires strength. Without strength, peace is just another word for submission. Captain Maria Santos walked behind them, her eyes wide as she took in the scale of the facility. Thousands of workers moved through the corridors, each one focused on their task. The air hummed with energy and purpose. "How many people work here?" Maria asked. "Currently, about 12,000. When we go to full activation, that number will triple." They reached a massive door that slid open at Samuel's approach. Beyond it lay something that made even Laura Mitchell catch her breath. Ships. Dozens of them. Each one larger than anything in the regular Alliance fleet. Their hulls were black as the void between stars, covered in weapons that seemed almost organic in design. They sat in enormous docks, attended by crews running final checks and loading supplies. "We call them Titan-class warships," Samuel explained. "Each one carries enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Their shields can adapt to any known weapon. Their engines can outrun anything the Valthorians have, and their weapons." He paused, almost smiling. "Their weapons are something the Empire has never seen." Laura walked closer to the nearest ship, running her hand along its smooth hull. "How many? 47 ready for immediate deployment? Another 32 in various stages of completion? The Valthorians have thousands of ships. It's true. But their ships were designed to fight species who had already given up. Ours were designed to fight an enemy who expects to win." Samuel gestured toward a doorway leading deeper into the facility. "Let me show you what else we have." They walked through laboratories and workshops, each one filled with technology that seemed impossible. Dr. Patricia Coleman, lead scientist of the Weapons Division, met them in a room dominated by a massive holographic display. Patricia was small and fierce, with sharp eyes and hair that was always messy, no matter how she tried to tame it. She had spent her career developing things that other scientists said could not exist. Most of them were in this room. "The Valthorians rely on 3 things," she explained, bringing up images on the display: communication, shields, and firepower. "We have developed countermeasures for all 3. She pointed to the first image, showing a complex web of energy patterns. "This is the Silence Protocol. The Empire uses faster-than-light communication to coordinate their fleets across thousands of light years. Without it, they cannot organize. They cannot call for reinforcements. They cannot even warn each other of attacks." Tricia smiled coldly. "The Silence Protocol can shut down that communication across an entire sector. Their ships will be deaf and blind." The next image showed a beam of light striking a shield and passing straight through. "Their shields are designed to absorb energy. Ours do something different. Instead of trying to overpower their defenses, our weapons create a frequency that destabilizes the shield matrix from inside. Their own shields become weapons against them." The final image showed a ship being torn apart, its hull crumpling like paper. "Gravity manipulation. We can create focused gravity wells that rip enemy vessels apart from the inside. No shield can stop gravity. No armor can resist it. One of our Titans can destroy a ship 10 times its size in seconds." Maria Santos stared at the display. "How long have you been developing this?" "The basic research started 50 years ago. Practical applications came together in the last 20. We have tested everything in secret. It works." Laura turned to face Patricia directly. "How long until we are ready to deploy?" 5 days for everything to be perfect. 3 if we push hard. Push hard. We have a deadline." They spent the next several hours touring the rest of the facility. Laura saw training simulators where pilots learned to fly the new ships. She saw armories filled with personal weapons that made standard military equipment look like antiques. She saw medical bays designed to treat casualties on a scale she hoped they would never see. But what moved her most was the people. Thousands of men and women who had dedicated their lives to this moment. Scientists who had given up fame to work in secret. Engineers who had spent decades perfecting machines they hoped would never be used. Soldiers who had trained for a war that might never come. Now it had come. And they were ready. Lieutenant Christopher Moore was one of the pilots Laura met during her tour. He was young, barely 25, with a quiet intensity that reminded her of herself at that age. Before the massacre, he had been a cargo pilot running supplies between colonies. His sister had lived on New Haven with her husband and 2 children. When can I fly? He asked when Laura visited the pilot training center. Soon. Are you ready? I have been ready since I watched them die. His voice carried no anger, only certainty. They killed my family because they thought we were too weak to stop them. I want to show them how wrong they were. Laura put her hand on his shoulder. You will get your chance. We all will. She returned to the main command center, as the facility came fully alive around her. Word had spread across human space, and volunteers were arriving by the thousands. Veterans who had retired decades ago returned to service. Young people who had never known war lined up to fight. Scientists abandoned peaceful research to join the weapons programs, and everywhere Laura went, she saw the same thing in their eyes. The same fire. The same determination. The same refusal to be victims any longer. Samuel Brooks joined her on the observation deck overlooking the main hangar. We are going to win, he said quietly. You sound certain. Not because our weapons are better. Not because our ships are stronger. He looked out at the fleet of black warships being prepared for war. We are going to win because of something the Valthorians do not understand. Something they have never faced. What is that? Humanity does not know how to surrender. It is not in our nature. We have been fighting since we climbed down from trees and picked up rocks. We have survived everything the universe has thrown at us. Ice ages, plagues, wars that nearly destroyed us. Every time, we came back stronger. He turned to face her. The Valthorians think this is just another conquest. Another Ox species to crush. They do not realize they have awakened something that has never been defeated. Not truly. Not permanently. Laura watched as another Titan-class warship completed its final checks and began to move toward the launch bay. Let us hope you are right, I am. Samuel smiled grimly. And in 7 days, the Empire's going to learn exactly what that means. The countdown had begun, and humanity was finally ready to show the galaxy what it was capable of. The week ended in silence. The Valtharian High Council never responded to Laura Mitchell's ultimatum. They did not surrender Fleet Master Zoreth. They did not offer reparations. They did not even acknowledge that the warning had been received. Their arrogance was absolute. Their confidence unshaken by the words of a species they considered insects. It would cost them everything. General Laura Mitchell stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned flagship Vengeance. It was the largest of the Titan-class warships, twice the size of any vessel humanity had ever built. Its hull was black as midnight, its weapons hidden beneath smooth armor that seemed to drink in light. Around it, the rest of the human fleet waited in formation. 47 Titans. 300 support vessels. 50,000 men and women ready to fight and die for their species. Laura looked at the faces around her. Captain Maria Santos stood. At the tactical station, her earlier doubts replaced by grim determination. Lieutenant Christopher Moore sat in the pilot's seat, his hands steady on the controls. Dr. Patricia Coleman monitored the weapons systems from a dedicated console, ready to unleash technologies the galaxy had never seen. All ships have reported ready, Maria announced. The fleet is yours, General. Laura activated the fleet-wide communication channel. Her voice would reach every vessel, every soldier, every person who had chosen to be here at this moment. Today we answer the massacre of New Haven. 12,000. Innocent people were murdered because the Valthorians thought we were too weak to stop them. Too afraid to fight back, too small to matter. She paused, letting her words settle. They were wrong. Today we show the galaxy that humanity is not prey to be slaughtered. We fight not for conquest, not for revenge. We fight for justice. We fight so that no other colony will suffer what New Haven suffered. We fight so that our children can look at the stars without fear. Her voice hardened. The Valthorians have ruled through terror for 10,000 years. Today that rule ends. Today they learn what happens when they push a species too far. Today they learn why humanity is not to be underestimated. She raised her hand. All ships, engage faster than light drives. Destination: Valtharian home system. Let us teach them to fear the name they laughed at. The fleet jumped out. Space bent around them as they crossed distances that would take normal ships weeks and mere seconds. When they emerged at the edge of the Valtharian home system, they found exactly what they expected. 100 Valtharian. Warships waited in defensive formation around the throne world. Each one was larger than anything in the human fleet. There. Golden hulls gleamed with the pride of countless victories. They moved into attack position with the confidence of warriors who had never known defeat. Fleet Master Zoroth commanded the defense. He had been summoned from the outer territories after his successful destruction of New Haven, promoted to Supreme Commander of the home fleet. Now he sat on his bridge and watched the human vessels approach, and he felt nothing but contempt. "Insects," he muttered. They actually came, signaled the fleet to destroy them. The Valtharian ships opened fire. Plasma beams lanced across space. Toward the human vessels, enough firepower to obliterate a moon. Zoroth waited for the satisfying flash of destruction. It never came. The human shields absorbed the plasma fire without flinching. The black holes of the Titan-class ships remained undamaged, unmarked, unimpressed. "Impossible," Zoroth breathed. Fire again. Maximum power. Another barrage. Another failure. The human fleet kept advancing. Then Patricia Coleman activated the silence protocol across the star system. Valtharian communications went dark. Ships that had operated in perfect coordination for millennia suddenly found themselves isolated and confused. Commanders screamed orders that no one could hear. Tactical networks that had managed countless battles simply stopped working. And then the human weapons fired. The first Valtharian warship never saw what killed it. One moment it was maneuvering toward the enemy fleet. The next moment it was torn apart from the inside as invisible gravity wells ripped through its hull. Crew members were crushed against walls. Engines exploded. The great golden ship became debris in seconds. Then another died. Another. And another. The Battle of Valtharia lasted 6 hours. The Valthorians fought with everything they had, driven by desperation as they finally understood their mistake. But their shields failed against weapons they could not understand. Their tactics crumbled against strategies they had never faced. Their 10,000 years of conquest meant nothing against an enemy who refused to retreat. Christopher Moore flew through the battle like a spirit of vengeance. His fighter dodged plasma fire and delivered killing blows to ships 1,000 times his size. Every time he destroyed a Valtharian vessel, he thought of his sister and her children. Every victory was a tribute to their memory. When the battle ended, 73 Valtharian warships had been destroyed. 22 had surrendered. The rest had fled into deep space, their empire's reputation shattered forever. Fleet Master Zoroth's flagship was disabled, rather than destroyed. Laura Mitchell wanted him alive. She boarded his vessel with a squad of Marines, walking through corridors filled with bodies and wreckage. When she reached the command deck, she found him waiting alone, surrounded by the ruins of his defeat. His 4 eyes stared at her with something she had never seen in a Valtharian face before. Fear, double quotes. "How?" he demanded. "Primitives. Insects. How did you do this?" Laura approached him slowly. "You saw what you wanted to see. A young species. Small ships. Peaceful intentions. You never bothered to look deeper. You never asked what we were capable of when pushed. The Empire will destroy you. Other fleets will come. This changes nothing. This changes everything." Laura stood before him, close enough to see the terror he was trying to hide. "You will face trial for the murder of 12,000 innocent people. Every species in the galaxy will see it. They will see that the mighty Valtharian Empire can be defeated. They will see that humanity does not forgive the slaughter of children." She leaned closer. "And they will wonder what else might be possible." The transmission of Zoroth's capture spread across the galaxy within hours. Species that had been oppressed for centuries watched in disbelief. The Valtharian High Council, humiliated and exposed, agreed to peace negotiations before the human fleet even reached their palace. 6 months later, General Laura Mitchell stood before the Galactic Assembly. Representatives from 100 species filled the chamber, watching as humanity took its place among the powers of the galaxy. The Valtharian Empire had paid reparations. They had surrendered territory, had released subject species who chose freedom over submission. Ambassador Kevin Shaw stood beside Laura. He had spent his career believing in diplomacy. Part of him still wished things had ended differently. But he understood now what Laura had always known. Peace is still the goal, Laura told him quietly. It always was. But peace without strength is just waiting to be victimized. She addressed the assembly. Humanity wanted to join this galaxy as partners. We still do. We offer friendship to any species that treats us with respect. We offer trade, cooperation, and alliance to those who share our values. Her voice hardened slightly. But we have learned a painful lesson. We will never again be victims. We will never trust blindly. We'll never disarm hoping others will do the same. And if anyone threatens our people, she'll let the words hang in the air. They will face the consequences. The assembly was silent. Every representative understood what they were seeing. A new power had risen. The galaxy would never be the same. On a small memorial station orbiting where New Haven once stood, 12,000 names were carved into crystal walls. Families came to mourn, to remember, to honor those who had died. The station had been built by volunteers from across human space, each one contributing something to ensure the sacrifice would never be forgotten. Captain Christopher Moore visited often. He had been promoted 3 times since the battle, offered commands and honors he had never sought. But what mattered to him was not medals or ranks. What mattered was keeping his promise. He stood before the wall where his sister's name was carved, along with her husband and their 2 children. 4 names among 12,000. 4 lives that had ended because an empire thought humans were too weak to matter. We kept the promise, he whispered. He made it mean something. Behind him, through the station's windows, the light of distant stars shone in the darkness. Each one might have planets. Each planet might have life. And each form of life would now know what humanity had taught the galaxy. Never underestimate a species that refuses to give up. Never attack those who have nothing left to lose. And never, ever mistake kindness for weakness. Humanity had tried to be civil. They had offered peace, respect, and cooperation. It had been answered with massacre. So they had stopped being civil. And the galaxy had learned to